trial, where he would now face the death penalty. Then an unexpected turn. A woman gave the police a letter which her daughter-in-law had received from a man in prison. It was an angry love letter. It was also a threatening one. You wanted to know how I really felt about you, and I told you. You never even wrote back. Ain't no forgiving you. You thought you knew me. You don't. Nobody knows me. His name was Omar Ballard. The letter ended with a stunning admission that he, Ballard, killed Michelle Bosco. You remember that night I went to Mommy's house and the next morning Michelle got killed? Guess who did that? Me. Ha ha. Ballard had been in prison for 2 years after viciously beating a woman in the same apartment complex where Michelle was murdered. He also raped a 14-year-old girl less than a mile away. Both crimes were committed within 3 weeks of Michelle's murder.
Sexual homicides are very rare. In that year, occurred 1997, in the United States, based on FBI statistics, there were 67 rape murders in the United States. That's out of over 15,000 murders, only 67. So someone who is sexually violent is a very unusual sort of...
And took a plea of life without parole. Daniel, because he was afraid of the death penalty. Joe, because he had come to believe he was guilty. The confessions doomed them all.
Then Dan stabbed her. I stabbed her.
No one doubted that what they were hearing was the absolute truth.
Eric stabbed her. Joe stabbed her. And Rick Polly also stabbed her.
The one confession no one believed was Omar Ballard's, that he had acted alone.
I alone committed the murders. There was no one with me. No one was ever present in any...
In 2010, Ballard agreed to talk to us by phone from...
You saw the 2 teardrops, right? A teardrop, I think it's somebody that they killed or somebody that they lost. Maybe both. I heard that it was somebody they killed. So if they have a teardrop, they're like bragging about it.
From prison where he is serving a life sentence. He said the prosecution didn't want to hear that he had acted alone.
It was made clear from the jump that unless I said somebody else was with me, that it wasn't going to be the truth. The only truth they wanted to hear, I did it with someone else.
He avoided the death penalty by cutting a deal with the prosecution, agreeing to say that he committed the crime with the 4 original sailors.
I'm thinking, damn, this is like a miscarriage of justice, because these people sitting here telling me what they want to hear, but they not clearly want to hear the truth.
So that is absolutely crazy. Omar Ballard, he gives a confession, but they don't want to hear the truth. They don't want to hear the truth. He had killed Michelle Bosco by himself. He did it alone, just himself. But the prosecution, the cops, they had done all this interrogation. They did all this, work with the courts. So they just want to protect their stupid ass case. And so they're going to fuck over these 4 other guys. He said those 4 guys that confessed, they're stupid. They're stupid. But he's going to point out why. Because a cop can intimidate, a weak person, but he wasn't easily intimidated. And so the forced confessions of people that didn't do it, they did it out of fear. Whereas Omar Ballard wasn't going to be intimidated that way. So it's crazy that they're going to cut him a deal and take the death penalty off the table as long as he testifies that the other 4 guys were with him. So basically they offered a criminal to do some criminal shit in order to save his hide. So why are we going to protect the dangerous? Why are we going to protect the monsters? When it comes to the 4 guys, they were sailors. So they were just good, honorable men who came across a corrupt fucking piece of shit, maliciously corrupt police officer who interrogated them for 9 hours. And when he was doing his interrogation, he says, "You're going to get the needle. You're going to get the death penalty." And then the lawyer for Joe Dick, he says, well, you might get the death penalty, so why don't you just cop a plea and take life instead? For a false confession, for I'm innocent. I didn't do any of this shit that you're fucking saying that I did, so why the fuck would I have to? Well, it looks like you did, and I'm a piece of shit lawyer, and I just took $22,000 away from you and your parents, and I'm not really going to represent you as if you were me. I'm going to represent you as if I'm part of the elite class and I could stay above you.
He also told us that he was not surprised that the men had confessed.
They confessed out of fear. See, one thing about me is I'm not intimidated. So when Ford came to visit me on a number of occasions, I actually could see right through it. I understood why these guys made these statements. They confessed out of fear.
13 years after the murder, he wanted us to know the truth, he said, which he stands by.
The truth is that I alone committed the murders. There was no one with me. No one was ever present in any shape, form, or fashion. No one ever had anything to say or do with the case besides me. That's what I stand by.
By 2001, Daniel, Joe, Eric, and...
So, crazy ass case. These four guys are going to get totally fucked the fuck over. It was his wife that had got killed while he was out. So he was on naval duty. So they all have alibis. Every single one of these guys have alibis. So he was, working with the Navy. So he comes home the next day, finds the body. He was working with the Navy too. So he had supervisors that could attest to where he was. I want to say he was in Pennsylvania. I forget the exact alibis, but one of them had a birthday and he wasn't even in the area. He was in Pennsylvania. And then the DNA comes back and says that it's Omar Ballard. It's nice and tidy, the apartment is, so there's no breaking and entering. There's no breaking of stuff. There's no boot prints. There's no hair. The only evidence was just the semen that Omar Ballard had left on the cover. And that was it. So no pubic hairs, no blood, no hair on top of their head. They did all this shit. They interrogated these guys for 9 hours and then got them into a forced confession because they were just broken and worn down. They've been broken and worn down for such a long time that eventually they just said what Glenn Ford wanted them to hear. And Glenn Ford is going to go to jail for 7 years later on for extortion. He wasn't just fucking with innocent people, but with the drug dealers or the drug addicts or the people that got possession of drugs. He would say, give me $1,000 and I'll talk to the judge and I'll get him to be lenient on your case. So he was extorting people that, he had caught for drugs and taking an extra $1,000 on top of whatever his police, fee, whatever he was getting as a police officer. So that's the guy, he's going to go to jail for 7 fucking years. So the guy that goes to jail for 7 fucking years is the guy that interrogated all these guys, and they interrogated him and yelled at him and treated him like shit. Treated him like shit until eventually they just kind of put their head down and said, yeah, you're right, sir. Yep. No, it was a big old gang rape, just like you said. It was a big old gang rape, and then he participated, and then he did the thing, and then I did the thing, and then there was the stabbings. Yep, just like you said. And then once they kind of had Joe, not Joe Dirt, but Joe Dick. Once they had Joe Dick, clasped inside of vice grips, essentially, he's looking at life or the death penalty. And so now he's going to cooperate. And the lawyer's not even present when they cooperate. Talk about the worst fucking lawyer on the fucking planet. Eventually they're going to get some kind of conditional pardon by Tim Kaine, and then Terry McAuliffe. He does some kind of pardon too. But it's sort of bittersweet because some of these have like records that's hanging over them. So they were released, but it was a conditional pardon. So they were released, but they had to still wear the charges around their neck. So it's just, this is the Norfolk 4. And this is just wrongful convictions. The cops just basically, what began was somebody, I want to say it was Tamika. Tamika was a neighbor, and she had pointed to the neighbor, saying that it was the neighbor who had did it. And the neighbor, who is Dan Williams, the guy all the way to the left, he had a cancer wife. And then while he was in jail, his ovarian cancer wife dies. Would she have died if he was still there with her? You know, supporting her, loving her, caring about her? I can't say for sure. So, and then these guys served 10 years in jail. So whereas with Omar Ballard, they went ahead and took capital punishment off the table, with these 4 guys, they were pushing for capital punishment, threatening them with capital punishment. You better do what we say. And then after 9 hours, they broke them, but they didn't break, you know, a guilty person to where they told them what the truth was. They broke innocent people and forced a false confession out of them. Exactly what you said, man. Yep. We had AK-47s. There was Coke and Pepsi and Big Mac, and then we cleaned it all up and vacuumed, and we were very coordinated and very efficient. Clean and tidy apartment, 1 knife, 1 set of DNA. The DNA doesn't come back to them. The DNA, like 200, 20 million to 1, it wasn't them. Whereas when it comes to Omar Ballard, it's like 1 to 1, like 99.9999% sure it was him. So they're going to ignore Omar Ballard's confession, Omar Ballard's DNA, and they're going to push their own bullshit. They had to protect the integrity of their case. They had to protect the integrity of the main guy who interrogated the motherfucker. And so basically, not only does this case condemn just the cops and the prosecutors, but it kind of condemns everybody. The judge and the jury too, and then the people, everybody. Because who would believe that you could be forced into a false confession? Who could believe that if you go on to the stand and swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, you're sitting there saying that you had murdered and raped the person that you didn't murder and rape? But that's what exactly happened in this case. And like you just heard, we're not going to listen to the actual confession, but the forced confessions that took 9 hours to do. They rehearsed it. They told him about the scene, and so he basically, they said what he wanted to hear, and so he had made up this narrative in their head with, this is what you did. You had with this and this and that, and we got evidence against you, and we have witnesses. We know that you're lying. He made them do a lie detector test, which they passed, and then he came back and said that they failed. And none of those interrogation tactics ever got into the courtroom. So it's like the fucking judge wants to push for the guilt. The prosecutors want to push for the guilt. And it's like they're trying to protect the fucking police officers who made the wrong determination. And so these poor guys just kept on getting carried through the fucking courts and shit. He just mentioned this guy's name. This guy mentioned that guy. And then they get fucking arrested because it's like, do you know anyone else? Well, I do know someone else. It's almost like, you want to trust the police that they're good people and they're out there doing good things. But when you hear about this dumb shit, it's almost like all the things that they tell you, right? Don't talk to the police, Miranda warning. Give me a lawyer. I'm not talking to you. I have a right to remain silent. I'm not talking to you. I'm not cooperating with you. Crazy ass case. Crazy fucking case. These guys are going to serve, 10 years a piece, about basically like 11 years for one, 9 years for another, some shit like that. But 10 fucking years of their lives, and basically their whole lives are turned upside down for cooperating with the police. We just want to ask you some questions. Can you come to the station and answer some questions? No. Can I search your vehicle? No. Can I search your house? No. You got to go get a warrant. No, I'm not going to. So it sucks, because it's like, if the cops are good, you want people to just be cooperative, tell the truth, this and that. But if the cops are corrupt and malicious, well, they'll just kind of keep poking you and provoking you and trying to oppress you until eventually, oh, you didn't pay for your tags, huh? Well, now I can fuck you the fuck over. Okay. Well, that's bullshit.